Living lectures connecting to success.
It says that man is born free, but everywhere he is in chain. Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chain. In fact, by that statement, Rousseau was asserting that modern states repress the physical freedom that is our birthright, and do nothing to secure civil freedom, for the sake of which we enter into what you will call the civil society. So actually, Rousseau is a Greek philosopher. He wrote a book in I think it was 1962. 1962. He wrote this book called The Social Contract. You might have heard about it. And the social contract actually picks up from where his earlier discourse on the origin and basis of inequality among men left off. We live in an epoch now, we talk about inequalities amongst men, especially between men and women. We try to do gender balance, try to empower women so that there can be some level of equity. Actually, Rousseau had this discourse on the origin and basis of inequality amongst men that he wrote. So the social contract is actually some sort of a continuation of that reflection, in which and that work actually was defining natural man as being free and happy and living in the forest. So pre-civilized man. Rousseau explains how man went from this stage of living in the forest happily. So now, somebody will ask, but what defines happiness? That's not our subject matter now. But then Rousseau explains how man went from this, state of autonomy, happiness, to the modern condition that we know today. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, the modern condition is actually dominated by inequality. Factors like inequality, we talk of dependency, violence, and summarily unhappiness. So evolution has actually moved from happiness to unhappiness. And as a result of all these different things terminologies we now use and define society. There's a lot of dependence. The South depending on the North. For those of us who do project management, international development, it's all about transferring know-how from what is considered the most developed countries to the least developed countries. You have funding coming in for projects so that, whether the society and its people can grow up to what is considered the developed state. Of course, we all know that this kind of funding often comes with conditionalities and the rest of it. And of course, that's because we live in a society that's been carved out now and governed by some social norms. We now talk of inequality between men and women, and inequality, intergender inequality, and intragender inequality. And all of that sums up to the various explosions that we find in our society today, whether political, social, economic, and that summarily leaves people more unhappy. So we know that evolution is about progress, positive progress. So how comes then that societies are moving rather from unhappiness to happiness to unhappiness? Happiness before, because pre-civilized man, they were happy gathering their fruits, growing wild in the bushes, and living a kind of egalitarian society. But today, capitalism, stratification, and all those big terms that we often use have kept people very, very unsatisfied. So what can really be the explanation of all this? Well, as I said, I will not dive into that kind of explanation now because that's not really the objective of this thing. I'm just kind of setting the ground stage for what I'm going to, the reflection I'm going to do shortly. And then you see there were you know, positive aspects to this process too. It's not like evolution has been all very negative and bad. There are positive aspects to this because with time, Rousseau admits in his social contract that that including the creation, these positive aspects include the creation of families. The notion, the concept of the family came with time. The discovery of tools and technology shows that man was evolving from, the egalitarian society to a more stratified capitalist um, lifestyle, and of course, building of cities and then social organizations. So it is evolution that's brought all these things, and what they sum up to call the society. That's what brought these different aspects. And of course, you imagine that evolution, there are also negative sides which I've seen, which is more of unhappy. People are a little bit more unhappy today than they were before because of the different things that come along with it. It's just like the internet. The internet came with a lot of positive things to help people, to transform society, to transform people's lives, to make life easy, but it also comes with negative sides of it, crime and name it. So now, about the internet, it depends what you want there. Well, if you want to grow, use it to grow, you can use it to grow. If you want to use it to destroy yourself or to destroy the society, it can also become a very dangerous weapon. So everything depends on how we use it. Now, unfortunately, this also gives way to what Rousseau in his book called The Right of the Strongest. The right of the strongest sounds like survival of the fittest from Darwin's era. But now, the right of the strongest is wherein a reign of inequality destroy man's original state of happiness. That is what I'm talking about. Originally, man was happy, collecting fruit, wild and eating, but now all these new developments, the right of the strongest, has now brought in inequality, and inequality is the basis of like the root cause of the destruction that's happening on how happy man was. And of course, it has also infringed into into people's freedom. So it then happens that humanity becomes some sort of alienated, and of course, the discourse on inequality ends unhappily in a general war. So we're now living in an era where everything is about demonstration, everything is about revendication, as they call it in French, everything is about quarreling, complaining. And so what is happening? Is it that we are moving from, we have completely forgotten that at one time man was an all happy human being, living in the wild, spending nothing other than physical energy to go down, gather roots, gather fruits, hunt game. And what's happening that the more we kind of develop a sedentary life, trying to bring in the facilities that we need not to be wanderers as before, we are rather instead of happy. So that's the background I want to give to this, and to go further then now to dive into actually what I wanted to talk about, some reflection that I've been doing in the past few days. Let me just stop here for a while and welcome Joy Chefu, you're welcome. 24, good to see you. Been a while, Kenneth. And Charles Tancho, good to have you. So welcome. So this state of unhappiness, what are some of the factors that contribute to this kind of situation? This where humanity now finds itself. And it got me thinking a lot. And then I was looking at, look at today. In the last few days, we've had the African Nations Cup that's currently being played in Egypt, where I don't want to go into how it was to be happening in Cameroon, and then all what's happened. And today, the teams are converging towards have converged in Egypt for the African Nations Cup. Some teams are still either just barely getting there. Some teams didn't come for a plethora of reasons, internal conflicts, internal agreements, and so on. But the summary is that teams are converging in Egypt for the next couple of days for the African Nations Cup. But then, I don't know if you've noticed what I'm saying, and it's been happening over the years. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about being dependent, looking at Africa getting to that stage where it can manage and handle its own things. But then what happens? We have an African Nations Cup being played in Africa, and I was supposed for Africans, but now it takes a foreign TV channel for us to be able to watch the match that's happening in Africa. You see where I'm coming from? I don't know what it's Canal Plus or Canal Sat, whatever canal it is. They're somewhere in France, and I'm sure most of the channels that have been giving out the images are found somewhere in France. So, an African Nation Cup, regrouping African teams to entertain Africans in their continent. We don't have one single African nation that can give us these images, contextualized. We need to fly over to France, sign, contracts with a foreign TV station that will provide us the images happening in our own land. So I start asking myself, in which universe are we living? In which era are we living? We're talking about emergence. Africa becoming dependent, Africa being able to manage its own resources, Africa being able to lead development of its own planet, of its own continent, of its own countries. We're talking about moving towards the United States of Africa. We're talking about all the various meetings that whole African Union and all of it. And the years go by, and we're unable to do simple things for our own self. Now, when you want to have credible information, you had it into a national station. Because the first impression, you'll say there, you'll find that what they tell you is what they want you to hear and not what is happening. So you live in an African country, and to get credible news, you need to tune to Canal France or RFI, Radio France. You want to watch some credible news, you need to go to some CNN, BBC, and the rest like that. When do we start listening to our own TV, the radio station? When do we start watching our own TV channel, generating content, credible enough, convincing enough to entertain and inform Africans? Those are the simple things that we are unable to do. We have leaders who go over there and negotiate those contracts. You have your seaport, and the goods meant for you are being managed by somebody who travels thousands of kilometers to come set up their whole company and begin to manage your own goods that you've bought. And then they will tell you how much you are going to pay, and such that you have 2, 3 neighboring African countries. The cost of a car in one country is like 3 times the cost in the next country that share the same boundary. Africa has become the only continent where you have a landlocked country that depends on the seaport of another country that has a seaport. So they come and remove goods there, and it sells in their country cheaper than in the country that has a seaport. The level of things and the way they happen, start asking yourself, is this a continent that wants to be dependent? Is this a continent where people want to be at the helm of managing their own things? Why must we go and sign contracts with people, countries outside Africa to be able to manage the very simple, basic things that should have been managed by our own country? We have the intellectuals, we have the resources, we have the structures. How is it possible that these structures can deliver? That's what's been boggling my mind. I can't understand. I can't understand why I have to tune to Canal Sat or Canal Sport to watch a match that's happening just 3 hours flight from where I am. Just imagine to travel 6 hours flight to another country before being redirected. What kind of setup is that? And we normalize it. It sounds okay to many ears, year in, year out. We say we are managing economies, we say we are growing economies, we are growing our countries, and our entire life is dependent on some foreign bodies. It beats me, beats my imagination. I mean, I can't comprehend. Move down the streets in most of the African countries. A supermarket. Nationals are unable to own a supermarket. If you step into any shopping mall, something that looks like a supermarket, it has to be some foreign company with some foreign name tied to it. Even when some of us, the Africans, we somehow get together and put up a shop, we have to go and borrow some name from Europe or US. You find in the heart of a rural town, some shop, they'll call it New York City, or they'll call it, I don't know what, all those crazy names. We can't even as much as give a name that represents where we come from. If a t-shirt hasn't got some logo of New York Bulls, we can't buy it. So if I go and put some t-shirt there and name it after my village, and then people will start, it will not sell in the market. If I go and do some t-shirt and name it, I don't know what Manchu, it will not click right in some heads. We need to go and buy something made in New York Bulls, Red Donkeys, and all of those. Then what about our culture? What about our roots? How do you sell the image of your own country? If all those things we clamor for, if those people had the kind of mentality we have, when would we be going there? Those are questions I ask myself. Look at the hotels. The big hotels in most African countries are owned by people who have traveled thousands of kilometers to come provide what can be called a hotel service. To most of us, having a hotel is just building some gigantic labyrinth there with so many rooms with no quality, no service tied to it. And we just sit and hope that, and then we employ what I call agents of destruction to manage it. Well, all they do is scare the clients away. But then we take holidays and we go and we talk and we even tell others how wonderful hotels we spend our time in some foreign lands. It's a pity at the long run. So I think these are things that trouble me, and I think that the time has come when we need to sit up. The time has come when we need to take charge and start running our own thing. I don't see why you need to take some gigantic construction companies to give us roads. Everything being shipped from us. Why can't we do our own roads? Why can't we do our own roads the same quality that the companies were bringing in to the roads? We've gone to the same schools. An engineer is an engineer. We don't have an engineer grade 1, grade 2, and an engineer, road engineer is a road engineer. A civil engineer is a civil engineer, no matter what part of the world gone to school. But why is it that when you are given the opportunity to do something, to uplift that country, you do your best to kill it? How do we start transforming? How do we start growing our economies? These are things that beat my imagination, and that's why I can't comprehend. I can't comprehend. Again, I can't understand why I need to tune to Canal Sat, Canal something. I don't have anything about it with Canal. But I cannot understand why I can't tune to some, I don't know, Senegalese something or some Guinea Equatorian something, a station there to be able to get the images that every other African country is now buying from some foreign company. So we sell our birthright. We give out what holds us together to foreigners, and then we sit back and complain. These are some of the things I've been wanting to share because, I mean, you know, just thinking of it alone really gives me, gets a chill down my spine. I want to welcome Delphine, Erasmus. You're welcome. So these are some of the things that I can understand. I don't know what there must be. I don't know why there must be some foreign coloring, some foreign flavor on every single thing that has to happen before we can consider it to be something. Even at that, some of the things that work well in those countries, when they get to our own country, they become problematic. I don't want to start calling names here, but we know of so many of those enterprises. I take what pains me to my bones. Some of the media, some of the telephone companies we have in Africa here. Some of the companies I find in my country, the mobile companies, you go elsewhere, they are considered the top. But you get to your own country, you can't make a call. Services are next to nothing. So you find yourself living in a country where everything that works everywhere not work. Kind of Africa are we building? And I'll go and sit in a conference and call myself a president. I can't understand. So these are some of the things that I look at and start asking yourself, where are we? Are we progressing or are we retrograding? We moved from egalitarian communities into the kind of stratified societies we have today. And instead of things getting better, we are becoming more unhappy. You know, everything is war today. We need to break things. We need to burn places for a simple message can be understood. It's pathetic. I don't know what you think about this, but I think that it's a shame. Shame on Africa. It's a shame that we can't manage our own business. It's a shame that we cannot be authorities regarding any aspect that has to do with our own continent. It needs to be people who fly jets, come and tell us what should be happening with the continent we call ours. If you see any simple declaration has to happen in some foreign country, today they talk of in the development arena, they talk of the Paris Declaration. They had to go and sit in Paris to do a declaration for people to understand that development in a country should be handled by citizens of that country. Why must it be Paris? Why must it be some Belgium? Why must it be some foreign land? It's a shame. And I think we need to think about it. We need to think about it. The time has come when we need to sit up and start handling some of these things ourselves. If we truly think that someday Africa, African countries should be independent. Independent. Thank you very much.